Hey, what it do, y'all? It's your boy E2 Blue coming back at you again, and I wanted to talk a little bit about this front office, this coaching staff, all of the above, the people that make the decisions with the Dallas Cowboys, and we look at everything that has transpired from when the moment that Dez got released until now. You look at all the drama that entailed with the whole releasing of Dez Bryant. See, a lot of that stuff was self-inflicted wounds. The team really could have kept a lot of that stuff in-house. It just seemed like it was kind of unprofessional. And the way that they did Dez, and I understand that you don't owe any players nothing as a coaching staff. You don't owe nobody nothing. But my whole philosophy is this. If you have a player that's, I guess, a franchise player, somebody that's been on your team for longer than 5 years, somebody that has set records for your team, and above all, a guy that you say that you like, is so many times during that time where they kept saying, we like Dez, we respect Dez, blah, blah. Well, respecting him, you should have done him right by letting him go earlier in free agency. Because what happened was teams had already had their draft board set up. Teams had already picked their free agents. And he had to do nothing but to wait. Now, all along, we see in the long run that he never went to nobody because he was just still bitter about the whole situation because he always wanted and only wanted to be a Dallas Cowboy. And I get that because he said that from Jump Street. The boy got stars tatted on him. I mean, Dak does too, but I'm just saying, like, they could have just handled that whole situation better. They could have kept all that in-house. They could have technically re-signed him. Now, you look at when he said that stuff right after the last game of the season when they lost. I think it was the Eagle game. And they asked him right after the game, and that was probably the wrong time to ask Dez because they baited him and he didn't even realize it until later. So they basically asked him, they said, hey, would you take a pay cut? And he said, hell no. So I guess the team looked at that and was like, oh, he ain't going to take no pay cut. So we just going to go ahead and make the decision without even talking to him. Now, what that did was Dez realized, oh, they baited me into talking. And then that's when he got mad at the media, if you guys remember. And he really wasn't talking to them for a minute. So then when it came time to either restructure his contract or release him, they ended up letting him go without even talking to him about a restructure. Now, he did say after that he would have restructured had they come and spoke to him and be like, sat him down, like, look, this is the situation, blah, blah, blah. You're not producing. You and Dak have been on the same page. So let's see if we can reduce this contract to a team-friendly level and work our way back and see what happens. Now, that's what I would have done. I would have restructured it. I would have made it so it wasn't so disrespectful to him. So he could have basically, they could have cut some of that money, turned some of it into a bonus. Not like a bonus, but basically cash out. Like, give some of it in a lump sum amount and then give him a regular contract that's team-friendly. Teams do that all the time for players. I think Sean Lee had something like that too. Not a lower payment, but basically a restructure. So that was that. Now, and then they came out and said that after they released him, it was like, then you started hearing them bashing them, and you heard Sanjay Lal saying stuff. Sanjay Lal wasn't even here last year. And I think that it was just unprofessional for the coaches to even talk about them when they're not even on the team no more. Because you look at other teams, Bill Belichick and these other coaches out here ain't talking about players after they leave. They're not even entertaining that. And if they're asked about them, they're like, oh, we wish them well. You say certain things like that and you keep it moving. You don't keep causing drama like that because you know that anything that's said that's more than a pin drop with the Cowboys, you know that it's going to be on front page news because it's Dallas Cowboys, America's team. Whether they're hated or loved, they're one of the most talked about teams in the NFL. So it's just that controversy. And of course, Jerry Jones loves that because it brings revenue for him. Now, then you go into when Orlando Scandrick asked to be released. And then that whole debacle and him basically not happy with the team and some of the changes that they made and with the anthem thing and all that. So he decided he wanted to go. He went to the Redskins. They didn't even keep him, but for a couple of weeks he had a cup of coffee there. And now he's with the Kansas City Chiefs. He's over there with Anthony Hitchens. Speaking of Anthony Hitchens, they didn't re-sign Anthony Hitchens. Although I believe that they could have, because they franchised tag DeMarcus Lawrence. So they still had a little bit of money where they could have figured it out. They could have figured out a deal with Anthony Hitchens, but they were gunning that they were going to get a linebacker in the draft, which they did. They did get LVE. Now, granted, I know a lot of you guys, and even me, I was adamant about not having. I was mad when they got LVE, not because of I didn't think that he wasn't going to be a good player, because I scouted him. I definitely did my research on him, and I knew that he was going to be a decent linebacker, but I just saw other players that was available on that board, and the fact that you were 2 picks away from getting Derwin James, like those were the things that I had wanted. You know, a lot of fans wanted DJ Moore. Some people wanted Christian Kirk. Some people wanted Ridley. And I think Christian Kirk and Ridley are the top rookies right now playing wise. So, you know, as you see, that's what we missed out on. Now, you look at the draft. This is what I'm talking about, LVE. He turned out to be a good player. I mean, he has what, 20 some odd tackles already. He had 11 in one game, and he has multiple tackles for a loss. And he's been doing well with the absence of Sean Lee. Now, we already knew it was inevitable. We know that Sean Lee, Mr. Hamstrings Lee, was going to be sidelined at some point in the season, because it happens every year. And unfortunately for him, that's what we have to live and die with. So you had to get linebacker depth. That was one thing that we didn't have last year. Hitchens, and it was just Hitchens and Jalen on one leg. And I mean, we had a lot of issues before. Now we have linebacker depth, so we're more suitable to be able to take the punishment of not having Lee. Now, granted, you still want that guy out there because he's definitely a difference maker. But since he's not, they did do a good job with that. I agree with that one. I think that Michael Gallup, our 3rd round pick, he's going to be good going forward. I think that, you know, it's the rookie woes, and everybody's looking at Ridley and Christian Kirk doing well over there with their respective teams, and everybody's like, oh, Michael Gallup's a 3rd round pick, he should be doing the same. Well, you know, we got different issues going on in Dallas that prevents that. You know, some of it is Gallup's fault, some of it is Dak's fault, and some of it is the coaching staff. So, you know, I'll get into that too as I go further. Now, after the draft, oh, and I forgot, Connor Williams too. Connor Williams, in my opinion, he's still a good pickup. He's going to be a really good offensive lineman. Now, when they do stunts on that offensive line and they're doing different protections and things like that, when they're actually running and pulling and doing things, he's really good at that. But going head to head with some of these defensive linemen and these defensive tackles that are strong and been in the league for years and they know how to catch you off guard, now that's where his weakness is. And I think that after this year, I think that you're going to see a much better Connor Williams once he gets in that weight room in the summer, and he'll be able to learn how to go against these guys much better than he is now. Like I said, he's not bad, but you can tell that he's a rookie. And again, offensive line, you know, those are positions where, you know, strength and technique are huge. So I believe he has the technique, but he just got to get his strength up, and he has to get used to going against these guys because, again, he's still young and he's got time to mature. And some of you keep saying that they want to change his position. No. Once a guy is in a spot and he's already been doing that for 3-4 games, don't keep changing him. Let him learn that and let him get good at that. You let him get good at that position, you straight. So you look at free agency. Now, Dallas Cowboys have been big on not making splash plays in free agency. They wait to, and some of you guys refer to the trash heap. They wait until free agency is almost done and they get the cheaper guys. Now, that's okay when you have a stacked team, but when you have a team where you lose key positions and you went from a team to having mostly veterans to now Cowboys is the ranked third for the third youngest NFL team. I just think that our coaching staff is not suitable for a young team. Like, it's good that they went young. I agree with what they did with that. They wanted to go young. They wanted to make changes. But I don't think that Linehan and Garrett are the best guys to produce these young guys, because these young guys need that time. They need nourishment. They need that one-on-one attention from these coaches to get better. Like, for instance, what Chris Richard is doing. Getting in your face when you mess up and encouraging you to get better and hugging you when you're doing good. That's that encouragement. Now, Jason Garrett is not the best at that, and Linehan show ain't either. So, and neither one of them have developed guys in their careers as coaches. So, since they're not good in the development department, they're better suited coaches for teams that have a lot of veteran players and a quarterback that's been in the league for a long time, not just 3 years like Dak. See, Dak is a 3-year starter, but he's still technically like closer to a rookie because he still has a lot to learn. He's not completely he's not the full Dak yet. He's still like, you look at it like this, like when a dog or a puppy goes from a pup to an adult, it's like he's still at that puppy stage. He has, not to say he's a dog, but you know what I mean. You know what I'm trying to reference. Just the fact of that churning from that young boy to a man syndrome type of thing, but in a football sense. I don't think that he's hit his cap yet. I think that he can improve, and he still has room to do that. Because, again, Tony Romo didn't start to his third season. Third and a half or something like that. But, yeah, after 3 seasons, Tony Romo didn't become the starter. So, you know, he had time to sit behind the court. Dak ain't sat behind nobody. Every stage of his life, he's taken over for an injured quarterback. And he's done pretty well in most cases. But, again, I think that Dak definitely needs that type of coach. Somebody that's a player coach, to basically get him to where he needs to be. Because I believe he can do it. He just needs that oomph from that. And he's not getting that from Jason Witten. He's not getting that from Jason Garrett nor Linehan. And definitely he ain't getting it from Kellen Moore, because Kellen Moore ain't doing a goddamn thing. He's not. I mean, you look at when Kellen's trying to get Dak to do something, to teach him something, he's got to go to Linehan. And again, we know that ain't working. So I just think that, like, in that aspect, it's not a good fit. And I think that's one of the biggest problems, is the simple fact that, like, that coach-player connection is not quite there. Now, again, I've said it before. Jason Garrett is good at his in-the-game speeches, and he's a speech guy. He's good at implementing his philosophy, but as being a player coach and a coach that's good for young players, he is not. And that's just one thing that I think this team needs, because you go to be a younger team, you need that coach to be that person to develop you, and they can't do that. And that's my biggest problem with it. I'm all for the fact that they did go younger, and I think that's another reason why they let go of Dez, because they didn't need him splitting up the locker room between, veteran and rookies and young guys, and they wanted to bring in a whole new face. And another thing too, they didn't want him as a number 1 wide receiver, knowing that he was getting paid a certain amount of money to be that number 1. They didn't want the simple fact that, like, because Dak had to worry about too much of, I got to get Dez the ball here, I got to get Dez the ball here. He's got to have a certain amount of touches a game, or we're going to get ripped on these platforms because he's the number one wide receiver making over $70 million and his production is trash. So I think that's why the team didn't want him there. And again, I guess they didn't like the way he was and he was talking and whatever the situation is. But I look at it like this. You know, you look at now and the possibility of bringing him back and, you know, the rumors and whatever. We don't know what's true or not at this point. But if they are looking into it, I mean, you brought back Bryce Butler. And I'm going to get to that too in a second. But I look at it like this. When you let a guy go and you want to move forward and you want to go into a different direction and that direction's not working and then you're trying to now backtrack, it's like running over somebody's bike with your car. You can't unrun it over once it ran over. You done already messed up. And then you back up and do it again. You're going to hit it again and cause more damage. So I said to say is as a question, is the possibility of bringing back Dez, would that hurt the team more or would it help? Now, in certain ways, I think yes and no, because for one, like I said, they said that they wanted to move forward and go a different route. So if you're going a different route, you got to stick to your plan. You don't backtrack on your plan. You keep moving forward. But on the other hand is, what you're doing ain't working, and it ain't no better than what it was when Dez was here. I think that all the production from the wide receivers right now, at this point, Dez Bryant and his numbers from last year, I think is literally equal or even a little bit better than what it is even without him. So it's not like you're doing so much better without him on offense. So I look at it like this, why not? You know, Dez wants to be here. He obviously don't want to go nowhere else. And he's messed up in the head right now because of his depression and the things that he's going with personally is messing him up because he's like, damn, this is the team I want to be on and I don't want to go nowhere else. And that's the reason why he didn't sign with nobody else. Quiet as it's kept. Because he wants to be a Dallas Cowboy. Because in his mind, he is a Dallas Cowboy. And, you know, I will always think of him as a Dallas Cowboy because, again, he's still the franchise receiver with his 73 touchdowns. So, it's just crazy to me because him and Dak never got that chemistry. But Dak should have learned how to put the ball in the right place. So if I was Dak, what I would have done to get that chemistry with Dez, I would have looked at old Tony Romo tapes and slow motioned it and saw where he put that ball at for Dez, because Tony Romo and Dez, it was a lot of backyard ball and it was a lot of connections for touchdowns, the back shoulder fades and sluggos and 9 routes and posts, all types of different plays with Dez Bryant with Tony Romo. But you don't have that with Dak. So like I said, if it was me and I knew that I wanted to gain rapport with my receiver, I would definitely look at old tape and see what he did with Tony, see what Tony did with him, and I would have been like, okay, well maybe I need to put the ball here and not here. So again, that's to me like, you know, they hammered this all off season. Does Dak need a number one wide receiver? He plays better when everything's spread out. I believe that he does play better when he doesn't have to worry about throwing it to one person. But I feel like if Dez Bryant did come back, you got to treat him like the rest of these guys. And I say that to say this. Yes, he would still get looked at as the number one. But when you're spreading the ball out, you can actually use that as an advantage, because you can use him because he's going to get double teamed, because believe it, Dez is still a good receiver. He still will draw a mismatch, and you still have to cover that because he will still burn you. And because Dez uses a lot of leverage, and when he catches that ball, a lot of these shorter cornerbacks can't touch that. So again, that's another decoy guy. You use him, and just imagine having Dez there still, using the play fakes and calling the right plays. Again, it goes back to play calling. Like I keep saying, like they just don't know what to do with these players when they get them. Now you got 7 damn receivers and you don't know what to do. I think that they need to chop these receivers down to a certain number and the core guys that they want. That way Dak can concentrate on having a rapport with these set guys instead of just like, oh, every other play I have to remember, oh, this guy catches the ball this way. This guy is slower than this guy. So if I throw this ball deep to this guy, he ain't going to catch it, but this guy will. And that becomes confusing because it's too many guys to try to figure out. And you can't do that in one season. You cannot. And that's what I'm trying to get you guys to understand right now, what's going on with this receiver core and Dak. Now, I think that, and I look at Sanjay Lau, and like I said, I'm not there, so I don't know exactly how well the route running is working with them, but I do know that all of the guys on this receiving core are pretty decent route runners. They're not bad route runners. Bryce Butler mentioned, too, the reason why they didn't really play him like that is because he's still learning. He has to relearn the offense because with Sanjay Lau, all the routes and the verbiage that they're doing over there is way different than it was last year when Derek Dooley was the coach. When Derek Dooley was the wide receiver coach. So you look at that and you're like, and then I started thinking, I was like, well, if Dez was here, would he even learn it that fast? Because if that confused Bryce, it would damn sure confuse Dez because people always attack Dez and the fact that Dez could not, he didn't know that many routes. And with that, you kind of had to keep it simple. So my whole thing is this. I just look at it like, whatever they do, I just hope that it's the right thing to do. But at the end of the day, their decisions are very bipolar. Very bipolar. Because you didn't want Dez for whatever reason, but then when Bryce Butler left and he went on Undisputed and was speaking all types of stuff, which some of it was true, I agree. But you can't do that. Because again, my grandmother always told me growing up, watch the bridges that you burn because you might have to cross them again at some point. And that was a big piece of humble pie for Bryce because he thought that he was going to be an Arizona Cardinal. He thought he was going to be the first or second receiver over there. And they didn't even keep him. They cut him before the season started. And now he's back with Dallas Cowboys. The very team that you crapped on. So, whatever the case may be, apparently it's no bad blood. But if you going to take a look at him and bring him in, why not bring Dez back? I mean, what is it going to hurt at this point? You know what I mean? Like, but again, if you do make that move, and even now, even without Dez, you still going to have to cut some receivers because you're not running around here with 7 guys. You're not doing that. You're not doing. That's not helping Dak, and that's not helping this offense. A lot of your vocal leaders have left the team. You know, Sean Lee's not playing right now, and he's one of your vocal leaders. And this team needs that. They need that veteran in there. I have to commend Ezekiel Elliott for what he did and coming in being a vocal leader for this last game at the Lions because Zeke can tell you himself, he's not a rah-rah guy. Zeke, if you watch Zeke pregame, he's not necessarily by himself, but he's quiet. He's getting himself together and he's getting himself pumped for the game. And like I said, he speaks by doing, not by actually saying. But for him to do that circle rah-rah hype up the team thing that Sean Lee and DeMarcus Lawrence normally does, he did that this game. And he's never done that in college. He's never been that guy to do the circle. So because of the speech circle. So because he did it in this game, I think that was huge for him because that was a big step in his maturity and becoming a leader on this team. Because again, we need these guys to step up and show, hey, this is what we need to be doing and this is not what we need to be doing. But we have to do this to stick together so we can win these games. And that's the bottom line. Now, the whole thing with Randy Gregory and David Irving and things of this nature, like the coaching staff has patience for certain guys within reason. Now, a lot of people gave Cowboys hell for bringing in Greg Hardy, which you already know what that was. They just brought in a guy that they saw that was a beast for the Panthers, and they're like, oh, well, he's still got it. Let's bring him in, whatever. despite, you know, we know that he's not the right kind of guy, but let's just use him for this year and get some sacks. And, you know, he came in here and he caused problems more than anything. Sleeping in meetings, coming late to meetings, kirking out and almost fighting the daggone special teams coordinator from last year, from that year, Joe DeCamillis, and all that, like, just craziness. And I'm like, you know, of course the Cowboys got fired up. They got killed for that selection and signing him in the first place. But which I wouldn't have touched that because of the situation. But again, you look at Randy Gregory and you look at David Irving, they're not like violent guys like that. They just had issues with, you know, drugs, and with David Irving, his home situation, the things he's going with in his personal life. Now, they give these guys a chance because they're good pass rushers, but I guarantee you if they weren't good, they wouldn't have these chances. So, speaking of David Irving, he comes back this week, and he's expected to play on Sunday. So, we're going to wait to see maybe Saturday and see who they cut. But again, if they cut that person, they still get their weekly check. So, that's pretty much, you know, with that. Now, you look at... you look at this, you look at, again, as we're talking about these decision making, big thing right now is putting Dak in a position to win. You saw what they did with the Lions. They went through the ball deep. They mixed it in with play action, play fakes, and that nice wheel route for a 20-yard gain for Ezekiel Elliott, things that they've never done before. You got to start incorporating these things into the offense because you don't want to get stale like an old bag of chips. But these ain't old. These good. But yeah, I just look at it like this. If Linehan could come in this game for the Texans, again, I'm going to do my breakdown on Saturday. My matchups, that is. If Linehan come in here and call a good game and neutralize their offense, and what's big, try to figure out what we're going to do with Merciless, Jadeveon Clowney, and Watt, because our offensive line got to block, because if not, Dak going to be wearing them around his neck, and we don't need that, and we don't need Dak getting hurt. So again, we have to figure out things going forward, and I was happy about the Lions game, but I need them to keep it up. If they can keep it up, I'll have more confidence in this coaching staff. But right now, just some of the decisions they're making just doesn't make any sense. And I think that's all I got. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. I know that, you know, it's really not about really Dez. It's more about the reason why I mentioned him is because he's key to what happened in the offseason and the ongoing talks about him and everything. But it's just, you just look at, just think about it. You go back to his situation when he first got released and everything that's happened till today. And you look at what they're doing and you're like, we're like a roller coaster, up and down, up and down. That's why we always are like an 8-8, 9-17, because that's just who we are. Jason Garrett is a mediocre coach, and you get mediocre results when you coach mediocrely, if that's a word. But yeah, but that's just where I'm at with that. But I just wanted to bring that. I just wanted to throw a couple of different perspectives at you real quick. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Yo, this is your boy E2 Blue, always keeping it real. Y'all have a great night. I'll talk to y'all soon.